We're going to need some tools to be able to actually remove the old brake backing plate and put the new one on and install it. So let me go through those real quickly and show you what you're going to need. Recommend a hammer with a soft plastic tips for removing of the grease dust cap. Okay. Doesn't mean you have to have all of these, but you can decipher what you think you need to do it effectively and efficiently. Needle nose pliers. You're going to need a torch or a lighter of some sort because we need to melt and shrink wrap the wires because we have to change out and reconnect wires. You're going to need a screwdriver because you need to manually adjust it. Okay, the manual adjustment aspect, if you have that, or if you have a self-adjusting one, then you can disregard the screwdriver. You may need a pair of wire cutters of some sort, a wrench to reattach. You can use an adjustable wrench or one of these Nipex style. I always love these. Talked about them on a tool video that I can put a link in the description on. And you'll need wire strippers and crimpers of some sort. You can use this kind, this style, or anything that would crimp a wire and strip. You're going to need a torque wrench. 9/16 is the size for the nuts that you're going to put on. Flashlight's always important because it's kind of a dark area. I like them with magnets so you can stick them to places. And you're going to need some butt connectors. Okay, these are the blue ones, which are going to be 14 to 16 gauge, and that's the size wire that you're going to need. And as always, I recommend safety glasses. The other things optional, you're going to need possibly some brake clean in case you get grease or anything on the actual brake backer plate. And you need to wipe that off, and some towels just in case for that. And most importantly, you have all your tools, but what about the backing plate? Well, you're going to need a new backing plate as well. So this is a self-adjusting backing plate that we're putting on. The customer of this unit wants to stop having to adjust manually all the time. Every 3,000 miles he wants to go to this style, which is going to be more user friendly, and then just monitor it once a year. So let's get started. All right, so first thing we need to do is we need to remove the dust cap. So again, my trusty hammer here with the softer plastic side, we're going to tap the cap, and as you can see, it's starting to spread away from the hub itself. Okay, there's our cap. Put this off to the side. Now, keep in mind, you're going to put this hub back on, okay? And I should mention that you don't always have to replace the hub every single time you replace a backing plate. So you can evaluate it. So we're going to take this off and evaluate whether this customer needs a new backing plate or not. So let's keep going. Needle nose pliers. We're going to bend our cotter pin back and take it off. Sometimes these can be a little stubborn, and if they are, you can use a pair of wire cutters to pull out. This is a neat little trick I learned. You can grab the tail and you can pull up like this, and you can pull out your cotter pin. Now, obviously you don't want to reuse that, so we're going to get a new cotter pin now. All right, so we'll discard that. Again, this should be finger tight, should not be on with torque. Remove our castle nut. It kind of looks like a castle. Now we're going to put our hand underneath here and we're going to pull out and remove our bearing. So now we've backed off the slack on the actual brake backing plate, pulled off our hub, and we're now going to look at the hub face. Okay, so and you can run your fingers across it, and there might be some minor scratching and grooving, but you don't want anything that's major. If you see something where it's got a deep groove in it, then the magnet's not going to attach to the face as well as it should. So putting a new backer plate on, you're basically going to wear the magnet down prematurely, and then it's going to fail anyway. This is part of the inspection that I would do if a customer asks for new backing plates, new brakes, especially in this case because they want to upgrade to self-adjusting. I would definitely check that. Also, I want to check and make sure that the braking surface doesn't have any scratches or dings or dents, anything that would be considered a failure point. Now, they can turn this. You can take this down to a shop and they can turn the actual braking surface. But a lot of shops don't have the equipment to be able to turn the hub face. I've seen guys where they've done it with a resurfacing disc with an air, die grinder. Just replace it. They're not that expensive. You're talking $150 to $180 for a new hub, and that comes with the bearings, pre-greased, seals. You slide them on, and you're good to go. Okay, so let's get on to put this off to the side, and let's get into how we're actually going to get this apart. Okay, the one thing you will need, in addition to the tools that I told you about, is a ratchet. So we have to physically take the bolts off. And you can see they're not terribly tight. 50 foot-pounds is not a lot. And these are probably not even 50 foot-pounds. They're probably more like 30 or 40. Okay, we're going to back all these nuts off, and there's 5 because this is a 7,000 pound or 7K axle, and we want to make sure that just in case we need to reuse the fasteners, these nuts, because most of them come with brand new ones, but we want to make sure that we don't throw them away just in case we have to reuse them. The other thing we want to pay attention to when we're taking this off is that when the backing plate slides down, this is a coned shaft until it gets to where the seal rides. So your seal rides here, your back bearing here, and your front bearing here. So as we take it off, we want to be careful that we don't nick any of these surfaces where the bearings slide on, or where the seal rides, because that would cause premature wear and cause your seal to fail. All right, so now we have all of the fasteners off. We need to pull this off. Sometimes it could be stuck, could be on there pretty tight. My guess is it's not. You're just going to give it a quick pull and it comes off. If it is rusted to it, you're going to need a hammer. And you're going to be careful, because if you're not careful, you can damage any of the surface that needs to be protected. So I'm going to wipe the grease off of this, and we'll add a little bit extra grease when we put everything back together. But for the moment, I'm going to wipe this off so I can try and minimize the grease on the new one when I put it on. All right, so there are going to be wires attached, and that's where you're going to need your wire cutters, okay? So looking back here, sometimes you can get this off without causing a problem. So you can see there's been repairs here before. These are Scotch locks. I don't like these. They leak, they corrode. It's just no good. So for now, what I'm going to do, since we're discarding this backing plate, I'm not going to cut any of this out. I'm just going to cut it back here. So we're going to cut that, and we're going to discard the backing plate, okay? So I'll put this off to the side. And now we need to address these wires, okay? So I'm going to, because we have new wire on the backing plate, right here. Now you can see these two are black. So you might be scratching your head with, okay, which color goes where? Well, because this is an electromagnet, it only needs to have positive and negative, but it doesn't matter where that positive and negative comes from. So if you pick this one to be positive, this one's negative. If you decide this one's negative, now this one becomes positive. So it doesn't matter how you hook them up. So before we put that on, what I want to do is I want to cut out all this junk so I can prep it and get it ready to go on. And I'm going to I want to preserve as much wire as I can. There is some extra in the axle. You can see I have a lot of extra, but I still want to preserve as much as I can so I don't have any wiring issues, because every time you replace a backing plate, you have to clip more wire. All right, so I'm going to go up here as close as I can to this, and we're going to cut these. And then I want to cut above this, because this wire crimp, we don't want to have multiple crimps. Okay, so because I could crimp it into here and put a butt connector in, but now you have a butt connector, another connector, and there's more possible ways that this could fail in the future and you lose your brakes. Okay, so I'm going to stretch these out gently, and I'm just going to cut those two right there. Okay, that's trash, disregard that. After you've replaced your backing plates, why your brakes don't work, there's a reason for this. Okay, they have the outer sheath on the wire that coats it and protects it, and then some companies have an inner sheath, a very, very thin plastic coating to keep corrosion from happening. In case it splits, the outer casing splits, it still has protection. Okay, so you want to basically cut this coating off, and you would put it in your strippers. It cuts down the outer shell, the casing, and you end up with bare wire. Okay, and that's about as much as you want. That's probably a little too long, but about that much. Then we're going to cut the other side and prep it and pull it off. Now, if there was an inner casing, you would actually see a red or potentially white inner ring that's in there, but this is just wiring, so there's nothing to worry about. But if you ever did have a problem with your brakes, that would be why. If you install all new backer plates, or you take it to a shop that doesn't know what they're doing and they forget to cut off the excess so that there's bare wire there, then when you go to crimp it down, it's not going to make full contact. All right, so we have these done. Going to grab our backing plate, and I always like to see how that wire is all mangled, nasty. I'm just going to cut these off, and I'm going to start over. So we're just going to cut a minimal amount off that we can. Okay, and we're going to strip these back. All right, and we want a decent amount on these because we're going to put them together and then heat shrink them. All right, so same amount pretty much is there. Again, while we're doing, and the reason I'm recommending doing this, let me take this on a side note, because when you put the backing plate on, now it's going to get even harder to gain access to all of this and heat shrink it. So what we want to do is we want to do all of the work we can now, prep it all, and then when we go to put everything back on, then it's much easier. Okay, same thing. These wires are a smaller gauge, so we're going to have to go to a little bit smaller on there. And the object with the stripper is that we don't want to cut the wire, we want to just strip the outside casing. Okay, same thing, good to go there. We're going to put this wire up over here the best we can so it stays out of the way, because the worst thing, no failure that happens, people get it in here like that, they don't realize it's there, and they put the backing plate on, and now you've just grounded out your wires. So it actually crunches them in there and they don't realize it. And with 50 foot-pounds of torque with 5 bolts, yeah, you can do a lot of damage. So we're going to put this up out of the way, make sure it stays out of the way. Want to make sure that these wires are out of the way, bend those back the best we can. And then we want to double check that this is the correct side. There is a left hand and there is a right hand for your brakes, okay? This one says left hand. If you look at the part number, the date manufactured on your data tag, it says left hand. So this is going to go on the left hand side of the trailer, the driver's side. The right hand side would be on the passenger side. And the arm that connects to the magnet should always be facing towards the front of the vehicle, the coach, the trailer, whatever you're putting these on. If it's turned around backwards and it's facing this direction, so it's this way, then you have it on the wrong side. So always make sure you have the appropriate left hand, right hand setup. Okay, now we're going to slide this on, again being careful that we don't nick any of the surfaces as we go on. We're going to put this in its place. Okay, the magnet should be at the bottom. Again, double checking, make sure our wires are clear in the back. Push it on, and we'll get our fasteners. Okay, so we need to now torque these fasteners down. The range is 25 to 50 foot-pounds. So we want to do it in a star pattern, okay, because it's a 5 pattern. If it was 4, which a lot of smaller travel trailers have, then you would do a 4 pattern, which would be in an X pattern, okay? So, but this is in a 5 pattern. It doesn't matter where you start. You just want to start, and you want to go until it clicks. And if you guys don't know how to use a torque wrench, then we can do an episode on how to use a torque wrench. All right, so we're going to connect all our wires now. This is what's going to actually energize our magnet against the hub face like we talked about before. And we want to make all of our connections. We want to make sure that we twist all the wire ends so that we don't get any, because what happens is if you don't twist them and you go to shove it into a butt connector, I'll show you that right now, what happens. You go to shove it in a butt connector and it does that. So, but when you twist it, it goes into the butt connector the way it's supposed to. So we want to twist the wires so that we get a nice spiral and tightens it. Now these are going to be short, okay, so you're going to have to be patient with this. Again, twisting your wire connections. Okay, and we want to link these together, okay? So there's 3 wires. We have 1 butt connector. And you might be looking at this thinking, okay, how's he going to put 3 different sets of wires in something that's supposed to have 2? Let me show you how that's done. So we're going to take this here. And again, this doesn't matter how you hook them up. Pick one and then hook the other up. So you're going to take these 2 wires here and you're going to twist them together. And you want this tight, okay? You don't want this to be loose. You want it as tight as you can get it. And then you're going to take your butt connector and you're going to push the butt connector on. And I like to spiral it on like this, like I'm screwing down a screw. And I push it down as far as it'll go. Now I'm going to take my crimper, and these are what they call insulated. So when you look at it, one will have, it's hard to see, but it says bare wire or bare and insulated or insole, okay? So I'm going to carefully grab this and hold it. I'm going to put this on here and I'm going to crimp down on the wire, right? And I'm going to squeeze as hard as I can to get that on there and connected. And that's what it's going to look like. You're going to do that 3 more times and then we'll come back and we'll actually get it heat shrunk. We're going to heat shrink the tubing now on the butt connectors, and we want to be careful that we don't melt the wire. This is the safer option. This is the faster option, but you need to be gentle when you're doing the faster option. Okay, and you want to attempt to not hit the wire the best you can. And when this heat shrinks, what's going to happen is it's going to put a plastic gel that's inside there. That's it. a self-adjusting setup, we don't have to actually adjust anything. We would just put the hub on. If you need to adjust it, you can. If there's no brake play, you're good. But if there is, then there's gentle, one notch at a time, continuing to spin the hub to make sure that it is actually not over grabbing. The key with the self-adjusting is every time a brake application happens, I know we've talked about this multiple times, but this cable here pulls and it adjusts the adjuster down at the bottom. If this was a manual adjusted one, then you would want to go and actually adjust them after we put the hub face back on with the notch in the back. And I'll put a link in the description. You can look back at how to actually adjust them if you're using the manual option. So from here on, this would be a simple concept. You would just put your hub face back on. You would then test to make sure that your electric is working properly on the electric brakes, and the job is complete. Put your tires back on and off you go. Okay, so hopefully you got some information that was good tips and tricks for replacing your backing plates. Hopefully I kind of hit on some of the subjects that you maybe were a little more apprehensive about. Maybe you needed to know more information in order to try to attempt it yourself. It really is very simple. Just take it step by step and do one thing at a time. Thanks for joining me for another Maintenance Monday, and I look forward to you guys joining me next week for another maintenance topic. Enjoy your week and enjoy the journey.